India is open for business. Prime Minister Narendra Modi made an emphatic pitch for Make in India during his meeting with top 22 CEOs in China this morning. The Prime Minister spoke of the changes that he had brought about, the change in the business environment in this country. He said this is a historic opportunity for Chinese companies to invest in India because the economic environment in India has changed. The regulatory environment has changed. There is now ease of business. He spoke of how efforts are being made to modernize railways, plan metros in 50 cities, fast-track clearances. The environment is changing. Decision making is changing. All of that, he said, is leading to positive changes. He said there's already been a 39% increase in FDI in 2014-15 compared to the same period the previous year, 7% growth rate. IMF is predicting even a faster growth rate. Let's listen in to the Prime Minister before we analyze what the Make in India pitch actually means and what will it lead to.
We have committed ourselves for creating and improving the business environment. I can assure you that once you decide to be in India, we are confident to make you more and more comfortable. Many Chinese companies have the possibility of investing in India to take advantage of India's potentials. The potential lies in manufacturing processing as well as in infrastructure. I am here to assure you that India's economic environment has changed. Our regulatory regime is much more transparent, responsive and stable. We are taking a long-term and futuristic views on these issues. We are going to develop smart cities and mega industrial corridors. For this purpose, we have refined our foreign direct investment policy in construction. We are modernizing our railway system, including signals, engines, and railway stations. We are planning metro rail in 50 cities and high-speed trains in various corridors. We also want to promote manufacturing in a big way, particularly to create jobs for our youth, who forms 65% of our population. Hence, we want to make things in India. For the purpose, we have launched a campaign called Make in India. Indo-Chinese partnership should and will flourish. I expect very good outcome from this coming together. We have complemented each other in the past. We can complement in the present and future too. As two major economies in Asia, the harmonious partnership between India and China is essential for economic development and political stability of the continent. You are the factory of the world, whereas we are the back office of the world. You give thrust on production of hardware while India focuses on software and services. We have rationalized a number of issues which were bothering the investors. In particularly, we are making the taxation system transparent, stable and predictable. We have removed a lot of regressive taxation regimes. In our very first budget, we said we will not resort to retrospective taxation. We are reducing the complicated procedures, making them available at the one platform, preferably online. Simplifying the forms and formats has been taken up on war footing. You are the factory of the world. Whereas we are the back office of the world. You give thrust on production of hardware while India focus on software and services. Similarly, Indian component manufacturers have been mastered in high quality precision, and the Chinese players have mastered the art of mass production.
Winds of change are blowing across India. It needs the Chinese sail, said Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Joining me now is Sumant Sinha. He's Chairman and CEO of Renew Power Ventures. Also with me is Sunil Alag, Chairman SK Advisors. He joins us from Mumbai. But I want to quickly go across to headlines today. Smita Sharma in Shanghai. Smita, the Prime Minister spoke from the heart. How have the Chinese CEOs responded to his Make in India pitch?
Well, the response so far seems clearly very enthusiastic, Gaurav, because India is a huge market even for the Chinese. Just the Chinese market, in fact, carries a lot of potential for India. But, clearly we have spoken to a couple of CEOs and they seem to be brimming with ideas. In fact, they want to invest into industrial parks, into special economic zones in India. How much of it gets implemented on the ground and, within what time span, in fact, will be the crucial question. Will they be able really to stick to some time schedules, and will the Prime Minister be able to deliver upon all the assurances that he has been giving to investors, not just in China, but also in the past? Remember when he was in Japan, he made that Make in India. When you come to do business with us in India, there will be no red tape. There will only be a red card. These kind of assurances that he has been giving also the government currently, as it completes, of course, 1 year in government. This is the day today that the BJP, led by Narendra Modi, in fact, also won the decisive mandate last year. They have pushed through for certain, in fact, legislations in Parliament, of course, be it regarding taxes or other insurance policies. Land acquisition, though, still remains, of course, a complex issue.
Yes.
But out here, in fact, CEOs do seem interested. They are looking at the India growth story very, very keenly and very, very closely, and they are hoping that perhaps India will be able to reconcile the mutual trust issues so that these companies, especially in the telecom sectors or even in the IT sectors, they can come in and operate
is something
in India.
we will take up in greater detail. Now, Sumant Sinha, you are someone who deals extensively with China, especially in the field of renewable energy. What's the biggest hurdle? What's the biggest hurdle that you face or businessmen face when it comes to India-China relations?
I think, Gaurav, the biggest issue is the fact that between India and China historically there has been very little contact, and so therefore Chinese don't really understand how India operates, how it works, and nor do we as Indians understand Chinese culture as well as we should. And so therefore I think in general there is some degree of trust deficit between the two cultures. I think both home markets are large enough in themselves that the businessmen don't really have to try to get to the other person's market to grow their businesses. And as far as Indian businesses are concerned, the other issue is that we've been actually late to the party as far as China is concerned. Because a lot of US and Western multinationals got into China many years ago. And Indian companies are now to that extent late to that party. We never really became part of the whole global supply chain that sort of is centered on China. And therefore we've sort of been left out in the cold as far as the entire Chinese manufacturing environment is concerned. And as far as Chinese investments into India are concerned, it's just that they don't understand India well enough. And India, all said and done, for anybody is a hard market to enter.
India is a hard market to enter. Sunil Alag, what can India do? The Prime Minister has been making this very emphatic sales pitch wherever he goes, whether it's Japan and, I had reported on the Prime Minister's trip to Japan, he'd made the same pitch. It's a red carpet. No longer will you see red tape. It's the same thing he said when Xi Jinping came to India. And just now we are being told 21 business agreements have been signed between India and Chinese business. These are, of course, MOUs worth USD $22 billion. But this is an intent What needs to be done to translate this into actual investment on ground, Sunil Alag?
I would just agree only with Sumant on one point, that for the Indian businessman to do business in India, it's a little slower than what Mr. Modi would have wanted. But if you take the Japan story, and I'm on a board of a company which is also with China, and I also know a number of Japanese on another board, they are having no problems at all, because whatever he is promised, in fact, he had constituted a committee on which there were 3 Japanese and 4 Indians, I think, which would make sure that every investment of Japan went through, and not a single Japanese company is complaining. So what he is doing is that if there are projects which have been signed in Japan or is being signed in China today, they are on a fast track. They are in states which will coordinate with the center. For instance, Maharashtra, Gujarat. He had invited even Karnataka, and it's very strange that he didn't go, because IT, what are our strengths? Our strengths lie in IT and skill manpower.
Yes.
Their strength is in mass production, as he has turned around and said. Now and they have infrastructure, they'll help us with the metros, they'll help us with the roads, and that's the area where the coordination will take place. And if some states don't want to cooperate, well, bad luck for them. That's as far as India is concerned. We have 28 states. I mean, and why hasn't he taken states from the east or anywhere else? Because he knows that at this point of time, if he commits something, it'll be very difficult for him to execute it.
The Prime Minister, of course, has been talking about
in what he's doing.
Yes, state to state, province to province relationship. He's saying we are 30 pillars, and a relationship that's built on 30 pillars is on a very, very strong foundation for a very tall building of cooperation between India and China. Stay with me, Sunil Alag and Sumant Sinha. Chinese CEOs are reacting to the Prime Minister's emphatic pitch. Let's listen in before I come back to you for more. Sunil Alag, $48 billion of trade deficit, and that is something that desperately needs to be addressed for this to be a relationship that's on an even keel.
You're absolutely right, but if you think it's going to get solved in 1 year, it's not. The process which Mr. Modi is beginning, look, there used to be, when I was a lot younger, they used to say that if China and India, if all the entire population just breathes out together, there'll be a typhoon in Europe. Forget about anything else. The two nations have been kept apart, as Sumant was saying, mainly by the West. It was not in the interests of anybody to have China and India together. So you create border disputes, you create you create every possible thing not to allow the two most powerful economies of the world to get together. And this is just the beginning. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if China comes into a couple of states in India, sees success, they will come in, and I don't think once you have economic dependence, I mean, what is Mr. Modi trying to do is trying to create economic dependence between the two countries. And if Japan and America also join in, then nobody will touch India. I mean, either politically or in terms of war, because they will have too much of economics at stake. And that's the only answer, as I see it, to get the two together.
Okay, how much can you blame the West?
Sorry?
Because Sumant Sinha, the issue also remains major market access restrictions that India faces in China, and that is something that President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Keqiang need to address, whether it's Indian IT, it's Indian pharma. The Prime Minister is making a very emphatic pitch. China is the hardware, we are the software, we are the backroom boys, they are the factory, but it's China that needs to do a lot more here.
No, I agree with you, Gaurav. The reality is that access into China is very hard. The competitive dynamics in China are very hard. I think there are cultural issues as well, which is that I'm not sure that the Chinese population would be very happy to buy goods manufactured in India. And so I think, therefore, that is something that the Chinese government has to really make an effort for. But I think the way to address this problem, that certainly is one facet of it, which is to encourage further Indian exports into China. But the other, I think, bigger thrust that Mr. Modi is trying to move for is really trying to get Chinese investments into India.
Yes.
I think if you look at it, China has a lot of actual knowledge and execution capability, particularly, for example, in the areas of infrastructure like railways, road building, highways, buildings just in general. Can't we get a lot of that expertise and capital into India and really just help crank up India's creaking infrastructure? I think if we do that, that itself would be a very significant outcome of this entire visit, and lead to at least, if not sort of cutting down the trade deficit, at least using some of those extra surplus dollars that China is getting from us and get it back invested into India.
Okay,
and
stay
I think
with
that
me, gentlemen.
To me is the biggest win-win that we can actually have.
Absolutely. Stay with me, gentlemen. The Prime Minister, of course, has focused a lot on railways, on infrastructure, whether it's the signaling system, it's the railway stations, the engines. Rahul Kanwal, Headlines Today's managing editor, is standing by in Shanghai. He's been speaking to a lot of Indian and Chinese CEOs. His interaction with Sunil Bharti Mittal. Let's listen in.
Start करें? Given the inherent advantages of investing in China and the inherent disadvantages of investing in India, will the Make in India dream of the Prime Minister ever come true? Joining us now is top Bharti official Rajan Bharti Mittal. Thank you very much, sir. I want you to explain your view on Make in India when it comes to Chinese companies, given the fact that most Indian companies now want to come and invest in China.
Well, I think while the Indian companies have been investing in China for manufacturing, even for consumption back home, but I think time has come for Chinese company to come into India, start manufacturing. The cost of labor has gone up here. Cost of doing business is getting up here. So India is a great platform from that point of view, where you get skilled labor, you get large markets, not only for India, but even from exports out of there. So India will become a destination if we can put our act together.
But India is also an impossible country to do business in. You're saying if we put our act together, in the last 1 year, several industrialists are saying things haven't changed fast enough for Chinese companies to feel the difference.
No, I don't think so. That's a correct assumption. There is enough change on the ground. It takes time to put the structural changes, but I think the government is committed to working towards that. They're working hard towards that. I think there are signs to it that it is moving in the right direction. Taxation piece, FDI piece, yes, ease of doing business is taking time, but if you look at the procedural way they are methodically going about it, it will take an impact, it will take shape. So it's not correct to say that nothing is, no work is being done on that.
You're speaking to several of your peers in Chinese business. What's their view of India in your own perception? Do you think they're excited, or they're just very worried and anxious about the suspicions we have about Chinese companies? That's what
I think the Indian companies, depending on which sector they are, if you see telecoms, power, I mean, there's a lot of exchange of between the two sectors. Infrastructure, yes, Chinese companies have not come and invested, but today's Prime Minister's appeal to say, come and invest in infrastructure, roads, ports, airports, I think that's the next level that India requires investment in any case. Smart cities, he spoke about it. So that investment is needed.
No, but let's take smart cities. In 1 year, we haven't even been able to give them land for their industrial corridor, whereas they are used to moving at a much faster pace.
Well, we have to work within the way India works in that sense. A land bill, the government is pushing the land bill, and I hope that some agreement does come around, because at the end of the day, you need land for manufacturing or for other areas, and that's what the growth, development and manufacturing will give jobs. So people have to understand that it's for the interest of a larger picture that will unveil as we go along.
So while the Prime Minister is here pushing himself, the Make in India dream, trying to help all of you do business back home, people say he's very pro-corporate. That's the constant accusation that is thrown at him, that he's a friend of the Mittals, the Ambanis and the Adanis, not so much of the poor people.
That seems to be your view. To me, Prime Minister is pro-India. I think there's nothing better that we should see out of this government. He's pro-India. And I believe that everybody that represents India, including us, the businessmen, the small, medium, large farmers, he represents the nation. So I think this is a very wrong way to project anybody.
No, when he pushes the land bill, charges are hurled at him that this is more for big industry than for the poor farmer.
The land bill is only not for the private sector. Land bill is only for the government needs, which is if you want to build roads, you want to build ports, you want to build defense installations, is nothing to do with us. We can go and buy private land. We don't need the government support to do that. He's looking for housing, low-cost housing. So I don't think so. In fact, you should help us sifting this maze that somebody has created to say why this land bill is bad. Why don't you actually look into the land bill and say what this land bill entails and you will get the answers. It's got nothing to do with the private sector.
Okay, finally, today is the day 1 year ago that Modi won the big election in 2014. 1 year hence, how does one of India's top industrial houses view the performance of the Modi Sarkar?
I think the government has done a great job, great transparency. You see auctions in mining, coal, spectrum. So there is predictability on taxation. FTA has opened up, insurance, which is long-standing, is opened up, and I think other areas are being addressed. So I have to say that in 1 year span of time, it's a great job.
So, aapke achhe din aaye from Bharti perspective?
I think India will see achhe din. If India sees achhe din, Bharti will also see achhe din.
Thank you so much for talking to us. Thank you. Hindi.
Sumant Sinha, Sunil Bharti Mittal has a point. He said, if we get our act together, there are better days ahead. If we were to specifically talk about India and China, have we been able to get our act together at an operational level?
If you ask me, Gaurav, I think that not yet. Just like a lot of things take time, this one is also going to take time. I think the first thing that the Prime Minister is trying to do is he's trying to hard sell India, but at the same time work on making sure that the systems here improve a lot. And I think he has to continue to do both in parallel. I think people, before they put hard dollars to work, are going to wait for seeing tangible improvements. And I think they hear what the Prime Minister is saying. They would like to invest in India.
Okay.
And I think they'll start exploring. But I think the actual investments may take another year to 2 years to happen. So I think in that sense, we all have to be a little bit patient. I can already see a lot of people coming into India, looking at the market, trying to understand what the opportunities are. And a lot of this will result in actual dollars coming in, investments coming in, strategic investors coming in. But it'll take a year or two for that to happen. And I think we need to be patient for that.
Sumant Sinha and Sunil Alagh, for the moment, many thanks for joining me. I have run out of time on the broadcast. Of course, the Prime Minister said there's already a 39% increase in FDI in 2014-15 compared to the same period the previous year. But for actual investments to start flowing in, as